Okay, good morning. Good morning, everybody, or I think afternoon on the East Coast. I'm clearly on the West Coast. My name is Sabra Williams. I'm an artist and activist and co-founder and executive director of Creative Acts, a social justice arts organization. And today I'm honored to be your host for this very, very exciting and long overdue opportunity to discuss advancing the arts and justice with one of my personal heroes, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. So today we'll be talking about the legislation that the Congresswoman and several of us have been working on for quite a long time now, and also just the importance of the arts and art justice and what that means. So you're going to hear some amazing artists. We're going to have a panel of some brilliant people, and at the end you will be able to actually participate in an artistic exercise for yourself as well. So I am going to first of all hand it over to my sister Mystic, who is a Grammy-nominated hip-hop artist and an activist, a scholar, community educator, and beloved daughter of Oakland, California. She's also known as a member of Digital Underground and called the DU Goddess. She's been recognized for her work as an educator and a scholar by the city of Oakland, of Los Angeles, and the Senate, the California Senate. And she currently serves as a governor on the Recording Academy's San Francisco chapter board, where she's a strong advocate for creators and diversity and equity. And also she has been a member of the cohort to help to create this amazing legislation. So Mystic, there's no better way to start than with an incredible piece of art. So take it away.
Greetings and thank you. Good morning to everyone with us. It's such an honor to be here. The arts literally saved my life, and they continue to enrich who I am and how I experience the world. They are crucial for building community and healing and also social change. So with that said, I'm going to share a little bit. Who does see the twisted shadows fall and capture in minds? Who hears the youth call from my block to suburban kids? I know this world weighs heavy on your low-set lids. This is for dark nights and sharp blades, for mountains of pain in your tear-stained face. This is for every time they beat you, every time they lied, every time you suffered, every time you cried. This is for broken dreams, shattered with precision, misunderstood visions, lives christened in prison. Dismiss them. You were never meant to understand. Tag on every wall and kiss the sky when you can. Fan formation, work them. So trace the outline of your soul when you desert them. Say, okay, all right, free your mind, if only for the night. Okay, all right, you don't have to fight tonight. Best to free your mind, for they bleed you like the rest with guns and daggers. It's a slow, silent death, while breathlessly await for the world to fall. It's not going to happen, and we hemmed against the walls of our own design that cross all space and time. Who caused division? Who drew the lines? Finding it hard to breathe, got bruises on the knees from praying to leave, please. Conceiving ways to escape the venom. The biggest fighters for our life is for the next gen, defend them. The rules bend them, because they're going to keep pretending every breath we take is worthless. All endings, no beginnings. Bells ringing, no need to rebrail. You shall prevail. Come on. Okay. All right. Free your mind, if only for the night. Okay. It's gonna be all right. You don't have to cry tonight.
Amazing, as always. Thank you so much, Mystic. What a beautiful way to start. And so can I ask us across the country to do something we always do at Creative Acts, to change our rhythm and to center ourselves, which is, can we all take one unified breath? And here we are together. Thank you. I want to give a land acknowledgement to the original people of this land. We'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the land we stand on is ancestral and unceded indigenous lands, and that the version of America that exists today began with the genocide of the native people on what they know as Turtle Island. Beneath the contemporary surface of any site in the United States, there are histories of belonging that have been erased, overlooked, contested, and forgotten, as well as contemporary communities that continue to endure, create, and thrive. As occupiers of these territories, we recognize the continual displacement of Native people by America and are aware that land acknowledgements are often used as an empty stand-in for actual decolonization work. It's something to bear in mind while we continue to build frameworks to dismantle the ongoing effects of colonial legacy, both in the art spaces, educational spaces, and elsewhere. So please use the link in the chat to find out whose ancestral lands you work and live on and learn about them, because they're still here. So thank you. We have, as you'll see here, we have a chat and we have a question and answer. If we have time, we will answer your questions during the program. And if we don't, if you've registered, we promise that we will get you an answer by email. So then you can keep it forever. So just to let you know a little bit about what we've been doing before I hand over to our amazing Congresswoman, we were asked to create a cohort to work on legislation to make equity in arts funding and resources, because you may not know, but in this country, the narrative around the arts is that the arts are for artists, or for people who are able to have access, or for entertainment. But a deeper look at the arts shows the profound and integral effect that the arts can have just on life. Low-income neighborhoods have 14% fewer cases of child abuse and neglect and 18% less serious crime than low-income neighborhoods without cultural resources. Low-income students who participate in the arts have a dropout rate of just 4%, or five times lower than their peers, and they do better across all subjects. And arts organizations serving communities of color are in general much less financially secure and far smaller than their counterparts in white communities. And the median budget of the 20 largest arts organizations serving communities of color were more than 90% smaller than the budgets of the largest organizations and white-led organizations. So we created this legislation to try to address that and redress that and make sure of equity with the public money that goes into the arts. So our leader in this effort has been Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who is known quite rightly as a voice for the people. She was first elected in '98 to represent California's 9th congressional district. She has a reputation for principled and independent stands and unafraid to take on the tough issues and to speak her mind. She's been a long-time proponent of safe communities, addressing some of our most important issues in this country. She has a deep understanding of the power of the arts beyond entertainment. And lest we forget, she was the only vote against the legislation that gave the president unlimited authority after 9/11 to use force. And she's consistently fought to stop endless wars. And she is a member of the House Democratic leadership and the highest ranking African-American woman in the US Congress. Please give your attention to our amazing Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that very warm and creative introduction. And I want to just thank you for your spirit, and to all of you for the work that you do each and every day. This has been just such an amazing moment for me to be able to work with you. And Mystic, I want to thank you for the spoken word, because we all need what you shared with us today. And I'm here in Washington, D.C., and it's hardcore here. And, I often wondered where the spirit is. And so when I knew I'd be able to be with you today, I felt peace and happiness and joy, knowing I have to go back to Capitol Hill and fight the good fight. But the arts really are something that I need in my life also. Some of you may or may not know that when I graduated from high school, I won music scholarships. I was then, in the day, an accomplished pianist. and I received scholarships for music. And I really loved playing the piano. Of course, I still have the same piano that I had when I was 3 years old. That's when I started playing. And my late mother, one thing I miss about her is telling me to get back to my piano. So one of these days, in her honor, I'm going to practice that piano so I can play somewhere. But music is so dear to my heart. Art is, and all expressions of art and creativity really enhance my life politically. But I know it enhances everyone's life, especially our young people who, and I'm so disgusted with so many of our schools who always cut arts and take arts out as their first budget cut. Because like was said earlier, kids are able to excel in their academics if they have art as part of their curriculum, and it balances out, and it rewards them with their understanding of who they are and what their spirit tells them, where their spirit tells them to go, and how to achieve whatever they decide they want to achieve. So it's really important that we are in this space and look at this event and our panelists as really, and our performers as really, I hate to say it, but it is a political moment for me because I want to get this bill passed. And I want to give a shout out to everyone who's helping us with House Bill 7627, which is advancing equity through the arts and humanities. And so I want to thank Erica on my staff, who is honcho in this for me and has done a phenomenal job. Give Erica a shout out and a round of applause. And I also want to thank I have to take a moment of personal privilege and thank my 13th congressional district constituents who are on right now. And also to Don Lacy, who's my constituent who I've known and loved for many years. And he's doing an amazing job on so many fronts in my district. Let me thank Senator Ben Allen of Santa Monica, who's the chair of the Joint Committee on the Arts for the state of California. And I look forward to continuing to work with him on our arts and justice issues and more. And so, yes, in late April, I introduced the very first piece of federal legislation that brings together the social and racial justice communities with artists, because we know arts and the humanities is a critical lever to dismantle systemic racism in the United States. And thank you for acknowledging whose land we are on. And it is so important that we remember that, because so many people don't even know the history of this country in terms of the genocide of Native peoples, the enslavement of African Americans, the internment of Japanese Americans, the Chinese railroad issues that the Chinese Americans had to face. All of these were forms of enslavement and oppression. And we have to never forget what has taken place in our country against the first peoples of our country. And so thank you very much for that. And our children need to learn this also. So HR 7627, let me just give you a couple of goals that we have. First, to create a grant program to support arts and the humanities and projects that directly combat systemic racism through the arts and humanities, and which is a very creative approach to address systemic racism. And I want you all to know you're on the cutting edge of something new in terms of strategies to make this country a better place. Secondly, to increase resources for community-based organizations that are served and led by people of color. And thirdly, to bring racial justice and arts groups together to build a national movement on this issue of arts justice. With 150 endorsing entities, which is really great since April, I want to thank everyone because you all have helped get us this far. We're building this momentum in our call to action for policies that uplift and that acknowledge the power of the arts and the humanities. And so it's time that we shift the narrative, of the arts and leverage the profound impact that the arts and humanities have on creating thriving communities. We're not talking about just survival, we're talking about thriving communities, which improve academic achievement and even lowering morbidity rates. We also know that dismantling structural racism through the arts and humanities is really critical to the health of our communities and the health of our nation. And so I just want to thank you all for this important briefing, and let us work together to enact systemic change through the arts. And remember, because sometimes we forget, everything is political. This is a political struggle. And so you must remember to register to vote, to elect local, state, and national officials who are going to embrace this movement, who are going to embrace our legislation, and who are going to say that there is a path out of where we are in this country through arts and humanities. So thank you again very much. I'm pleased to have the chair of the Joint Committee on the Arts, Ben Allen of Santa Monica, to provide some remarks. Senator Allen, I want to thank you for all of your leadership on the arts in our state, because of course, California leads on so many fronts, including the arts, and with our artists, who really are the driving force behind the great spirit of the Golden State of California. Thank you all again.
Well, thank you so much, Congresswoman. It's a real honor to be here with you. And I just want to add my admiration and gratitude to you, Congresswoman, for your principled progressive leadership you've shown in Washington over so many years. And this is certainly one of many areas where you've shown such exemplary leadership. And it's great to be partnering with a state level initiative to complement the work that you're doing at the national level. So the Congresswoman mentioned, I chair our legislature's Joint Committee on the Arts. It's a committee that oversees arts policy, hears ideas relating to the arts. I grew up in an artist household and did some artwork myself, both photography and piano and theater and all sorts of concert band, and so it's always been a creative world that helped me grow and thrive. And you're absolutely right, Congresswoman. One of the things we know is that a strong arts program also makes a huge difference in a young person's life who may be at risk. We actually find that a strong arts curriculum is one of the leading factors in making sure that a kid actually stays in school and keeps at it, because arts curriculum connects to them in a way that their more traditional academic subjects might not. So we actually take a lot of that money that you help us get through the NEA, get it through our California Arts Council. We've been upping our money for arts funding significantly. When I first got in the legislature, we were funding our Arts Council at about $1 million, and we've now increased that by about 40 times, even more, if depending on how you count it. Some of the programs that we're helping to fund. I want to acknowledge Californians for the Arts. I want to acknowledge WESTAF for co-hosting today's events. And I just want to acknowledge all the cultural leaders and artists and social justice advocates who are participating in this webinar today. Thank you so much for the work you're doing to really democratize the arts and ensure that there are new pathways for folks who want to find ways into the creative industries and into the arts in general. You understand the unique power of our cultural standard bearers to impact social justice issues, both within our arts and our cultural establishments, and also as change makers in other areas of society. I want to thank my good friend, my dear friend, Sabra Williams, who's also, go check her out in Griffith Park, acting this month and next month in a couple of wonderful productions, if you have the opportunity. But she's done so much work in prisons, bringing uplift and inspiration to some of our vulnerable brothers and sisters in the incarcerated system. She's been always looking for ways to see how the arts can change lives in untraditional ways, right? I mean, through the Actors Gang Prisons Arts Project. She also has her nonprofit Creative Acts, where she's working with the formerly incarcerated when they get back into society, how to engage them in an arts curriculum that will build dignity and a sense of purpose and get them on their feet. Sabra helped to bring me into this webinar because we've been working together with some parallel efforts in the state legislature that complement the work of the Congresswoman. We've got two bills, SB 628 and SB 611. And in different ways, both of these bills are trying to build pipelines into the creative workforce with a focus on underserved communities, including our reentry populations. It's all about recognizing the value of helping to open up spaces, but then actually putting some money and some resources and some programming to help build up those pipelines. And so we've been working really hard to try to increase funding for the arts in general, but we're trying to get our SB 628, the Creative Workforce Development Bill, funded. We're certainly, I want to just thank the advocates on the Zoom today who've been helping to call into their legislators and and the budget leaders to see what we can do to get some of these pipeline programs funded, our SB 628 funded in the new state budget. It's going to be it's great to pass these bills, but we got to put some money behind them, some real resources to ensure that these pipelines are real for younger people coming from underserved communities to find paths into the creative economy and into arts careers. So if you've got any input or ideas to share with us on this issue or other issues relating to arts and arts equity, please reach out to me or reach out to our Arts Committee consultant, Lauren Pizer-Maines. Our number is 310-318-6994, 310-318-6994. Again, thank you so much, everybody who's on this call, for all that you do to help promote the arts. I'm just excited about this wonderful event, and thanks for letting me participate.
Sabra, can I say one thing before we start the panel? I want to thank Senator Allen because California is leading on so many fronts, including a budget surplus. And so I'm really confident that the funding is going to be there from the state to move this agenda forward. But I want to tell you one thing. I've got to just do this real quick. A couple of weeks ago, I participated in the Black Caucasus Foundation to raise scholarships for young people. And of course, they had a painting class. And I want to show you what I painted as we kick off the arts. You guys see that?
Love it.
And I'm not a painter, but I just had to do this and show it to you because I'm trying to learn how to paint. So if anyone wants to help teach me how to paint. Okay, we can get started, but I thought I'd just kick it off by showing you.
I love that. That just goes to show you don't have to learn to paint. You just have to paint. That's it. You just have to paint and enjoy it.
It's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Thank you, Senator Allen. I wish you were my agent. Next up, before we get into this incredible brain trust of beautiful artists and activists, we're going to have a little opportunity to look at Don Lacy's incredible work. Don is the founder and owner of LoveLife Foundation, which is an Oakland-based, you'll be happy to hear, Congresswoman Lee, community building organization committed to promoting life and saving lives through community revitalization, leadership and development. And their mission is to provide supportive and empowering environment for at-risk youth and to mobilize community support to change economic and social conditions. So Don Lacy has created this beautiful piece of work that we'll be able to see. It's a one-man show, and we will be able to see a small part of it now, right before we do our panel. Thank you.
Donna Lacy is on a mission to break down the wall of silence when it comes to racism in America. His hilariously funny one-man show, Color Struck, examines the differences and misunderstanding among different races that leads to racism and racist behavior. Color Struck.
It was absolutely fantastic.
A great evening. One of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
Beautiful, enlightening. Things being said that need to be said more often.
A lot more people should see it.
This program should be introduced to many of the students. Young people just don't know their history, and they need to know their history.
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect, but I was quite pleased because it was thought-provoking, and yet there was humor, so it was both entertaining and informative.
I was a small child growing up in East Oakland, California. I was scared to death of the police. See, that's why the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was formed. Because in the mid-60s in Oakland, a big percentage of the police force were racist, white, Ku Klux Klan affiliated crackers who they recruited from Alabama and Mississippi to come to Oakland to brutalize and kill black people. Orlando Castillo, as the life ebbed out of his body, she became hysterical. And her 4-year-old daughter in the backseat saw all of this and said, "It's okay, Mommy. I'm here. It's okay, Mommy. I'm here." And understand the history of institutionalized racism. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing explained racism through the Cress theory of color confrontation. White angelic story of Emmett Till, who was mutilated and murdered for allegedly whistling at a white woman. And his mother insisted the casket be open so the world could see how they did her baby. For over 400 years, the African has been murdered.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit.
Well, Donald, first I have to say to you that you dealt with some of the most, I think, important issues of our time in your production tonight.
Thank you. Wow. Power of the arts. And in order to be who we say we are as a country, we have to be able to face our past, or else we are eternally chained to it. So we have some brilliant minds here. Very honored to help to create this conversation. Sometimes panels are a bit boring. This will not be boring. These people are artists and great thinkers. So this was going to be an interesting conversation. So first panel person is David Holland. He is the Deputy Director of the Western States Arts Federation, known as WESTAF. And he joined in 2019 as the Director of Public Policy to lead its advocacy and public policy programs and services, and to serve as the primary liaison with federal agencies, regional arts organizations, states and local arts agencies and state arts advocacy groups. So David is doing the work on behalf of us. Hello, David, and thank you for all the work you're doing. Christina Wong, a lot of you will know Christina. She is a Pulitzer Prize finalist in drama. She's a performance artist, comedian, writer, and elected representative, thanks to people who actually go vote. She's been presented internationally across America, the UK, Hong Kong, and Africa. And her recent Kristina Wong for public office is simultaneously a real-life stint as the elected Sub-District 5 representative of Wilshire Centre, Koreatown Neighborhood Council, and Rally Campaign Show. She founded Auntie Sewing Squad, which is a national mutual aid network of volunteers that sewed cloth masks for vulnerable communities during the COVID pandemic. And then thirdly, somebody I know very well, Major Bunton, who is the Director of Programs at our organization, Creative Acts. He's an alumni teaching artist, and he sits on our advisory board. As a teaching artist, Major goes back into the prisons he spent more than 28 years in to teach. He also oversees all the curricula for Creative Acts programs. And on paroling from prison, Major co-founded a reentry housing program in the community called Inglewood Wrapping Arms Around the Community. And his life experience and his experience creating and running programming is second to none. So honored to have Major. Can you turn on your camera, Major, so we can see your delightful face for these questions? And I have 3 questions only for you lot, but these 3 are the key to everything. So anyone can jump in. The first question is, we talk a lot about arts justice. What is arts justice? And how do we work towards it from our communities, us at home, all the way through to Congress? So who would like to start with that big question? Anybody can.
Sure, I can. For me, when I think we have to get away from the thinking that the arts is just like $1 million sculpture in a museum or $500 opera tickets. The fact that that's what a lot of people think of when they think the arts, these elite institutions, is where the problem lies, that there is this whole world of community-based work. There are art experiences for youth, there are music classes in school, there are community-devised theater pieces with recent immigrants. I'm working, to plug myself, I'm working with formerly incarcerated Asian Americans in a devised theater piece that will be broadcast by East West Players, right? And so that is sort of where we have to sort of unpack, like, that the arts is not just this fancy extra non-essential thing. And we have to think that if sexism and racism and economic inequality exist in other sectors like healthcare or education, can this help us understand that this economic inequity exists in the funding for resources in the arts and in arts institutions? So for me, arts justice is about making intentional structural legislative decisions like Congressman Lee's proposal about how funding is dispersed so that it can get around and that people need to have a full understanding of what the arts can do.
Yes, thank you. Especially as it's public money. Why should it not go to all public?
Exactly.
And Major, did you want to say something? I know Major, you don't earn your money from the arts, well, performing arts, but you do understand the power of the arts in a profound way that most of us, including artists, do not.
Thank you, Sabra. Just want to just kind of really get right to the point. I'm gonna talk about the art from an internal aspect. When I was able to be introduced to the arts while I was incarcerated in 2016, I had no clue about how the arts work internally, how I was able to change the narrative of how I saw the world, how I saw myself, how I treated people. And the moment that I gave myself a chance to interact with this powerful tool that we're all working on today, I started to see the changes in my own life. I started to see the way I started to conduct myself around people. And that led to my freedom. And once I was able to come home, I wanted to be sure that I was able to get back to my community to give them a sense of what I was able to learn as I was going through that process. Barbara spoke earlier, the fight the good fight. And I never really understood what that really meant until I was able to sit into the fire of what the power of the arts had to offer me. And then I noticed in my community that we had no resources pertaining to the power of the arts and how it can transform lives, especially lives that have been, brought up in the war on drugs, all these different elements that really tarnished our community. And so I really believe today, this bill is so important for many communities around the country, as well as the one that I'm lying right now in Inglewood, California. So I just want to say that now today, advancing the arts is where I stand at. And I really believe if our young men and women have an opportunity to really get a chance to engage why we feel this bill is so important, it can change their household, it can change what they're going through personally. So that is my take, and I'm definitely a proud person to be a part of this panel. Never ever thought I'd be a part of a panel. When I was incarcerated, I said, no, this is untrue. Here it is, I'm sitting here with people who really believe in the arts of the power. So I just want to say thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And Major, how many times have we heard in prison and juvie, if I'd have had this at school, I wouldn't be in prison now? How many times have we heard that?
Hear it all the time, in juvie, in prison. And it's just, it's sad that, these individuals didn't get an opportunity to understand the power of the arts, and they had to learn it through juvenile hall and prison. That's unfair.
Yes, so, thank you. David.
All right, thank you all for everything that you've shared so far. And I think that draws me into a few things that I might share. The first of all is that the arts can definitely be part of restorative justice. And I think when we think about how we engage with members of our community who are at some points in their lives incarcerated, and the way that we even deal with conflicts and challenges within communities, the arts can be part of a solution in terms of bringing people together and focusing on how we can restore people's relationships in communities and see the value that everyone has in communities. There are, in many cultures around the world, cases in which this practice is very widely used and in which communities come together and through their artistic and cultural practices, bring people who have, done something in their community back into balance with their whole community and have respect for people through these kinds of processes. And there are organizations that do that type of work in the arts. Again, going back to your point, Kristina, there isn't, the arts is not just limited to performances that happen on the stage in a formal venue or what is hung in a gallery. The arts are a vital part of processes that we have within our communities to uplift our lives and hold our communities together. And find understanding across different communities and backgrounds where that understanding may not be. I think another part of arts justice is that it is part of movement building and in a sense always has been. And I think for a lot of people, what might readily come to mind is like music. I know like even recently, as people were grieving and protesting around the country, Kendrick Lamar's All Right song became a protest song. That's like a popular music song, but there are many other songs, performances, music, books, et cetera, that have inspired and continue to inspire people in movements to press for change and to gain strength and joy and solace as they are, challenging the systems that make their lives difficult and that oppress people, that lead to harm for people and ultimately cost people their lives as well. I think that many people have said over the years that the arts can be part of cooperative economics within communities and there are opportunities there. I think that the arts are also part of the cultural assets of communities. And very often for some communities, what is focused on is what people lack and what people do not have. We all have rich cultural assets, traditions, heritage that informs our lives, that again, gives us joy, gives us solace, helps us to move through the world that we navigate in, helps us to understand it better.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. I'm actually going to squish these next two into one because I know the Congresswoman only has a certain amount of time because she's out there trying to save our democracy right now. So let me put this into one question. So we know the challenges, as anyone who's ever tried to raise money for the arts knows the challenges of trying to raise money. So maybe you want to briefly express some challenges that you may have had, but what impact I'm more interested in is like, what impact do you think that this legislation could have in the short and the longer term if we can actually get it passed? Because in the legislation is mandated ways to disperse the money and to make the RFPs easier to do. So anybody, what do you think?
I can say I when I finished school, I worked for a of color theater nonprofit, and it was completely night and day to the predominantly white institutions that have access to big funders and that mysterious millionaire that writes a check. Like most small arts organizations that are going to be, tend to be a lot of people of color orgs, we don't have access to board members and people who need a tax write-off in that way. And so the nonprofit granting and funding and support system looks completely different. And the way our, to ask the same communities we're serving who themselves might be poor or marginalized doesn't feel like a reasonable thing to ask them to support in the same way. So I think immediately that could help shift that dynamic to create some stability, because I've seen a lot of the small of color arts organizations just have to fold or be operated as a hobby on the artistic director's laptop, in their home. And I think that this could like actually provide.
That was the laugh of pain, by the way.
Yeah, living off of tears and sweat, and but that's another conversation. But but I think just to create that sort of stability to be able to work towards a sort of sustainability that goes beyond surviving from project to project and being able to envision 2 or 4 or 5 years out the way other organizations are able to is really incredible. And that's what the sort of structural shift in thinking about funding can support.
What about Major or David? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say I really believe that it would change, crime in some of the inner cities. There's another outlet that kids can turn to. Because when you don't have nothing to do and the leisure time starts to kick in, you want to start finding other places to try to spend your time. And I think these art programs are so important. I believe that the mental health aspect of it too. When you're able to really channel these emotions through style and characters and arts, you're able to really be focused about how you see the world. For me, understanding, sad, happy, fear, anger, that was something I had to discover through the arts. So if kids are able to experience those things, maybe they can understand what they're going through and not rely on drugs, alcohol, the community to pull them in a negative way. So my take is just really believing that if we can put these things in the inner cities and across the world, I really believe that it helped the mental aspect of it, and it changed the numbers on crime. Thank you.
For me, I think in the short term, this will bring down some of the barriers to accessing funding from the arts and humanities endowments, which although have had and have even in their enabling legislation, this commitment to diversity, which was expressed back in 1965, and multiculturalism, because of the structures of the federal government, it's been very difficult for them to realize the original vision of what their agencies were meant to do. So I think over the long term, this will support the realization of that vision. And I do think the bill builds upon it and brings it into the present day in terms of what we aspire for our public agencies to do with regard to building a new kind of society that's structured on very different terms, that it includes all of us and addresses some of the histories that we continue to deal with. But I do think that it's important to underscore what Major said, that this will lead to investment in programs that have a direct impact on people's lives, young people's lives really across the lifespan. I do think it will create opportunities and open doors to people to pursue their passions and careers in arts and culture in whatever way that shows up, whether they become someone that we all know about or someone who's very well known in particular communities. But many people get their start through educational experiences in school, and more importantly, outside of school, that inform them of opportunities to help them develop their talents and capacities, find talents and capacities they never even knew that they had. And that's inspired whole generations of people. And we need to continue to provide those opportunities to people. I think that it can help a range of different people dealing with different concerns. And what inspires me a lot about artists and people that work in arts and culture is that they're inspired, especially the people that work at the community level, especially in a lot of our BIPOC communities, are inspired to not only provide arts and cultural experiences to people, but also address other challenges that they have in their day-to-day lives and bring together things like helping people to figure out ways of re-entering society after being incarcerated. There are places that provide food to people as they are having arts and cultural experiences, that are dealing with mental health issues, that are helping people to identify opportunities for housing. And I think that investments like these will go a long way to both lifting up creative expression and arts and culture in our communities, but also helping people with day-to-day challenges that they are dealing with.
That's so important, David, because also what we underestimate is that investing in the arts is good for the entire country, not just for the people. It creates a healthy culture. And for instance, people who have trauma cannot learn in the very narrow conventional way we allow people to learn in school. The arts can be a vehicle also for learning. And we've seen that a million times. Just demolishing barriers between races, gang affiliations, people with trauma being able to not just do well at school, but do better than other people when they have access to the arts. So it's something for all of us. Did any of you want to just make any last minute, I will
just put it clearly, like the arts was my therapist. My mom is watching this, and she did not take me to therapy. So I found the arts. Just make that very clear.
Thanks, Mom.
But it's what we talk about. It's like, this is how I found socialization and a community, and it's all these things that we need to weigh public health in ways, and not just like giving people medicine and whatever, but by creating these communities of creativity where you feel heard and seen. This is all how we stay healthy and happy.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would say, Sabra, is that, I never would have came across the power of the arts had I not taken a program while I was incarcerated. And when I was incarcerated in 2016, the Actors Gang came down, and Sabra was a part of the program. And that's how I was able to really understand the power of the arts. And the way she came in and taught me the powers of art was really beautiful. And the ask to get me to really open up and be vulnerable was really beautiful, especially coming from some strangers coming into this institution telling me this is what we needed to do. And the way that was presented to me made me feel comfortable. And the most important thing out of that, it made me feel human again. even though I was incarcerated. It made me feel human again. And that's what I lost over the years while I was incarcerated. And once I felt human again, then the world was all mine to own and live the way I wanted to live. And that opened the doors for me to really be free and honest with myself about what I was experiencing in my life. So I just want to say thank you, Sabra, for introducing me to this beautiful world.
Thank you for being my teacher. That is a great way to finish this conversation and hand it back to Congresswoman Lee. And I just want to remind everybody that in 2020, when you all posted #BLM, and we talked a lot about equity, that wasn't just a post, that was a promise. And this bill will make that promise come true. So thank you, Congresswoman Lee, over to you.
Yeah, thank you all. And so much of what was said just reinforces the fact that arts have many purposes. It has healing purposes and goals. Arts can change people, they can change communities, it can change the world. I mean, and so, and arts also create, for those who believe in the spirit, which I know artists do, remind us that we have other parts of our being that need to be fed and that need to be nourished and that need to be surfaced as part of who we are. And so that's one thing I always remember here in Washington, D.C. is that my spirit has to be part of any decision-making process that I make with these horrific decisions sometimes that I have to make. Also, let me just say, I have traveled the world, Cuba included, Africa, Latin, Central America, South America, to Europe, and most of the time it's for my work. But I always am impressed because I always ask to meet with artists and see what the creative side of the country entails. And every single country I visit values art and the humanities as part of their culture. It's not separate from politics, or it's not bifurcated, or it's not a side gig, or it's integrated in every aspect of their society. And it really helps strengthen people and helps give them a vision for where they want to take their lives, their family, their country. And it really is powerful. We're way behind in this country in terms of integrating the arts into our daily lives. And I hope that you all understand how much I appreciate and love you for continuing to insist that institutions respond to that, because we have a long way to go in this country on so many fronts, but this is one front that we have the ability right now to change it. So I'm going to end by just saying, get political, you all. Get people to co-sponsor, your members of Congress wherever you live, and your networks to co-sponsor HR 7627. It's a numbers game in DC. I got to get to 218 to get it off the House floor. That means getting 218 co-sponsors, or at least 200, so I can bring it to the floor. It means registering to vote. It means going to see your members of Congress and holding them accountable. Remember, elections have consequences. It's not just going to the polls and voting. It's saying, look, we want you to support this and help get it passed. So I'm saying that because we have November coming up, and as an elected official, I'm politicizing it because it's political. All of the talk, all of the speeches and discussions about funding, well, yeah, we have to figure out ways to streamline the funding process. I mean, I know how I ran a nonprofit, my own mental health center, when I was in graduate school and before I came to work for Ron Dellums. And I know what it's like. The structures are still as hard as they were when I was writing proposals then. They're even more difficult now. So that's part of it. But you know what? It's not going to happen unless we have the right people in place. And those people in place have to understand and value what we're talking about and value the arts. And they're not going to be the right people unless you elect the right people to put them in place. So I'm just saying this because, Sabra, I have to just, these elections are so important. So I have to just say, please, you guys, get your members of Congress to co-sponsor this bill. Please elect the right people in November who are going to support your efforts, our efforts to make this a better world. So thank you all again very much. Really good seeing you in the middle of this day that I have. Now I have to get back to doing the hard stuff. But this has been a moment for me to inspire me. You all have inspired me to keep going and to fight the good fight. And we have some stuff this week to deal with, which is not pretty. So I'll remember today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And that's what voting gets you. It gets you an amazing Congresswoman like this. And not voting is also voting for people who are not amazing. So please go vote. Thank you. And I'm just going to hand over to Julie, the amazing Julie Baker from Californians for the Arts, who has been the fire behind this event and without whom none of us would be here today. So Julie, over to you.
That is giving me way too much credit, but thank you, Sabra. Thank you to everyone here today. Thank you to the Congresswoman for authoring this very, very important legislation. Thank you to State Senator Ben Allen for showing up here today and for all the work he does in California to advance arts and culture through legislation and through funding. We couldn't do it without those two fearless leaders on behalf of arts and culture. And of course, to all of the folks who spoke here today, David Holland from WESTAF, Kristina Wong, and Major Bunton, and the incomparable Sabra Williams, and Mystic and Don Lacy, and what you're going to hear coming up. And I'm here to share with you how you can get involved right now. I'm like the 1-800 get involved lady right now. So here we're going to put it in the chat. It's really easy. You can send a letter to your elected official that says in Congress, in the House, that says, please co-sponsor this bill. You also can sign as a sponsor yourself, as an individual artist, as a representative of an organization. All of this is going to be put in the chat right now by our amazing team. Eduardo, Zuriel, Tracy, and Kara are here from Californians for the Arts. Simple link. There's a bit.ly also that you can share, and graphics that we'll send to everyone, because we really need, what did she say, 218 co-sponsors. We need to get this off the House floor. We want to get it to the Senate. We want this to be legislation. We want this to be a law. We want funding for it. And I know that with this incredible dynamic group of humans who are behind this legislation, like everyone you heard from today, it will happen. But democracy happens with the will of the people and the involvement of people. So we encourage you to get involved in this fight, in this movement, and here's how you can do it. So that's my bit here today. We're so grateful that everyone joined us, and to Sabra for moderating.
Don't leave. We're not finished.
No. And I'm going to say, what I wanted to say is that Sabra's got this really cool thing that she's going to do right now. So hang on and let's get engaged in actually making some art right now. Go for it.
Okay, so we're going to do this real quickly. Grab a pen and paper. This is for you. So this is how we also made the bill. When I was asked to create a cohort to make the bill, I said only if we can create the legislation through a creative process. So this is one of the things we did. Grab a pen and paper. We're going to write a poem. It doesn't matter if you can write or you can't, or you don't know what a poem is. You're just going to write some words. So on your piece of paper, write down 3 words or short phrases that you heard today in this event. Any 3 short, like words, short phrases. Okay, good. Let's take one unified breath. This is a Creative Act special you're experiencing right now. So we're going to take 30 seconds. This is an abbreviated version of it. This is called Diamond Poems that we got from we created for our young women in juvie who said that they feel like they are under pressure. And we also figured out that diamonds also are created by being under pressure. So we call this Diamond Poems. So for 30 seconds, you are going to take those 3 words that you have on your piece of paper and you're going to include them in a poem. Just keep the pen going on the paper. And don't worry about it. No editing, just keep writing for 30 seconds, go. I'm timing it. This will be your souvenir from the day that you can keep to remind you of our meeting today. Just 10 seconds left. Okay, great. Finish or don't finish. We love unfinished poems at Creative Acts. So now just quickly look at your 30-second poem and just think about what are the most important parts of this poem to me. And now you're going to take that 30-second poem and you're going to squish it into a 15-second poem. Don't think about it, just do it. Ready, go. 15 seconds. Right, and finish or don't finish. And now look at your 15-second poem and just consider what is the most important word to me of this 15-second poem. What stands out to me? What sums up my poem? What word? And that word is your diamond. And I'm going to ask you to put your diamond into the chat so we can have a chat full of sparkling diamonds from across the country to remind us of the power of the arts and our time here today. Thank you so much. Oh, these are some beautiful diamonds that are coming in here. Oh my gosh, we could make another poem just with these diamonds. We could go on forever, but we have no time. So we're going to actually finish with another piece of incredible art from Invertigo, which are a dance company, set to a poem by my dear friend and fellow artist and creative arts teaching artist, Karani Rose Mekatichian, with music by Diana Lynn and movement by Bernard Brown. And so we are just going to finish across this beautiful country that really can be what it says it is and has not yet been. We're going to finish with one unified breath, and then we're going to show the video. So one unified breath. And I love you, my fellow artists, and let's finish with this beautiful video. Thank you and have a great day.
They ask why I do what I do, why I march, why I stay loud, why I am uncompromising, why I keep going. I don't know how to answer. No, not how. Why? Why ask when the answer is known, when the story is told and retold generation to generation? How do I express this divine purpose? Honoring the blood coursing through my veins, empty of conditioned privilege, pushing me to leave the movement, to question the urgency, the impact, the duty. Ancestors hold me when my legs are weak and knees buckle, when my elbows wiggle beneath my sign, when the heat is overwhelming, when the shots are fired. Before I can collapse, phantom arms straighten my spine, support my feet, hold my head high. Their presence familiar, comforting with me always. Ancestors resuscitate me, connect us, the power of us side by side as they lift us up, as they link our arms, as they raise our fists. Unbreakable armor forged of broken chains. Then there are those, you know the ones, who say they care, despite their history, in spite of their privilege. They care, and you nod. You welcome their newfound awareness, their concern, curious at first, hopeful even. You watch, you wait, and then they dwindle in number, in fervor. The exigency they lack gives way to apathy and distraction. Unsurprised, you ask why? Why would they continue? Why would they keep going? Do they feel the same divine power? Do their ancestors care to redress their past steeped in our present? Instead of steady arms lifting them up, do phantom hands cover their mouths? Muffled cries for justice unable to reach our ears. I wonder. But ancestry is earned, and I don't know that I believe evil has a life beyond this one. So what is it? What holds them back? Do they think their black square is enough? Protest selfie is enough? Performativity and selective outrage is enough? The status quo is enough? Those who will never know the skin we're in, the kinks and coils in our hair, the fear of red and blue lights behind us. Those who must choose to lose the power they say they never asked for. A challenge, and the only way forward. Those who join us, side by side, ancestors in the making, all of us, for it is earned.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think there's a link to that piece that Judy's put in on Vimeo in the chat, so you can have a look. And we will answer your questions that are in the Q&A. And if you have any more, as long as you're registered, you will get an answer to your questions. Thank you. Have a great day. And please, please, the first thing you do when you get off this, please go contact your rep and ask them to co-sponsor this bill if they haven't already. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Is it just us now?